My brother got my husband drunk and married him in Vegas as a prank and refused to annul it. I'm Joe, I'm 33, and I'm a stage manager who spends her days herding actors and light cues into a living thing that doesn't fall apart in front of a paying audience, and you would think that would prepare me for family, but nothing in my kit, gaffer tape, aspirin, a pencil-born shop, could fix the moment my brother texted a photo of himself in a white tuxedo beside my husband under a plastic arch at the 24/7 Chapel of Everlasting Love with a caption that said, "Lol chill sis, it's just a Vegas bit," while I was in a dark booth calling the queue for thunder. I want to tell you it was a joke that slipped, like a pratfall where the floor was more slippery than planned, and then everyone laughed and we untied the knot with our teeth and a notary. But my brother is the kind of man who thinks the punchline is a constitution. He is 29 and allergic to apologies. He makes internet videos where he pranks people at the mall, and he has a following of teenagers who would follow him into traffic. He's good-looking in the way that makes rented tuxedos forgive him. When we were kids, he turned the living room into a stunt show and I turned it back into a room where you could read a book without dying. My husband is Theo. He is gentle with his hands and his sentences. He is a physical therapist who teaches backs and shoulders to live again after bad decisions. He understands connective tissue better than I understand my own family. We had a quiet wedding 2 summers ago in a park with a brass trio and a lemony cake that my grandmother said tasted like hope. My brother Grant pouted through the ceremony because we didn't let him release doves. After, he gave a toast that included the words, "Don't screw it up," and took credit for introducing us. He didn't. My friend Marie did at a cookout when I asked if she knew anyone who could help me move a couch without puncturing a wall. The Vegas thing started because my show closed. We'd been on for 6 months and then one Sunday the curtain came down and everyone cried like we'd been given a dog to care for and now it had found its original owner. "We should go somewhere," Theo said. "We should do a ridiculous little trip." I said, "My ridiculous is a museum in Pittsburgh," and he said, "Mine has neon," and then Grant called and said, "I'm already in Vegas for a collab, come I'll get you comped rooms if you don't make fun of my brand." Theo wanted to see a fight, actual boxing, and I wanted to lie on a hotel bed and eat quesadillas. We booked flights. The first 12 hours were exactly what you imagine if you've never had your life turned into content. We landed. The air smelled like an air conditioner's bad decisions. In the taxi, our driver told us the names of 3 women he was in love with and the odds they would call him back. We checked into a hotel with a carpet pattern designed by a man with enemies. Theo swam while I hunted for a place that sold coffee without also selling clockless despair. We met Grant in a lobby that looked like a Swiss bank account and a circus had a baby. He appeared in sunglasses so large they should have required a permit. "Look at you, married people," he said, as if he were introducing a zoo exhibit. He hugged Theo like Theo owed him money and then hugged me like I was a camera he respected but did not recognize. "Tonight we're doing the strip responsibly," he said, which meant we will not die but we will flirt. This was fine. We have bodies. Also, I am boring in public. My joy is water and good lighting. It was Theo's 3rd whiskey that clicked the night into stupid. He is not a heavy drinker. He is, however, competitive with the idea of memory. "I want to remember this," he kept saying, which is irony as a drink special. Grant knows bartenders, or at least he behaves like a man who never gets the full price. We were shepherded to a table with a view of failure dressed as independence. Shots became a tide and Theo, who is his best self most of the time, turned into a funnier, looser version who thought karaoke was a sacrament. We sang "I Want to Hold Your Hand" badly enough that the DJ confessed to loving pain. I should have taken Theo home then. But I was tired and soft and Grant was a whirlwind of declarations. "One more, it's fine, I'm fine, everyone's fine," and Theo was smiling into my hair and I wanted to be 23 when I was not. We wondered. At some point, neon became blur. At some point Grant said, "We should do a bit," and Theo said, "Yes, a bit," and I said, "No bits," but my no was a napkin against a hurricane. We passed the chapel and Grant said, "Let's get married," and Theo said, "Already am," and Grant said, "To me," and Theo laughed and said, "I love my brother-in-law," and I smiled because in that moment it was almost sweet, 2 men adoring the same woman and not knowing that adoration is not a lasso. Here's the part one missed. They went inside. I turned to look at a fountain that was pretending to be important. I took a photo of it because that is how I say to the future, see? I was alive. When I turned back, the door had closed. My phone buzzed, a picture of their faces under the arch, a caption, a link. Watch the live stream. I could hear music no one should be married to. I ran inside and found them at a counter with clipboards, a woman in a lavender suit smiling like she'd solved the square root of everyone's loneliness, and an efficient dressed as Elvis practicing sincerity under fluorescent lights. Grant, I said, what the hell? He held up a finger like a host warming the crowd. It's a prank, he said. It's content. Harmless. He wiggled the clipboard. It's a performance license. The lavender-suited woman smiled wider. In Nevada, she said brightly, we make it very easy to love. He's married, I said, jabbing my thumb at Theo. To me. She shrugged, shallow as a saucer. You can do non-binding ceremonies just for funsie or binding ones if you go to the county clerk. We're not going to the county clerk, I said. No clerk, Theo agreed, swaying slightly. No clerk, Grant sang. It's a bit. Elvis married them in the way a person microwaves macaroni, efficient, weirdly earnest, a little burned. Theo cried, the way drunks do when meaning arrives uninvited. Grant filmed his own face more than the ceremony because this is a man who believes his eyes are the sun and everything else is reflective. I stood there holding my breath as a living protest. When the kiss prompt came, Grant did a bow and kissed the air like a gentleman on a poster, and Theo kissed his cheek, and in the footage it looks like a sweet and glorious brother-in-law moment, not like the center of my life being shifted 3 inches to the left. We left. We ate fries. I put Theo to bed with a glass of water the size of his regret and a trash can he would not need. I turned to Grant in the hallway and said, delete it. He laughed. It's gold, he said. People will die. I might, I said. Please, Grant. This is my marriage. He leaned against the wall like a teenager being told he couldn't skate in a parking garage. It's not real, he said. It's a story. Relax. Morning arrived like a stranger who knows your name. Theo woke up with a head like a bell. What did we do? He asked, holding his skull as if it were a fragile prop. I told him. He sat up too fast and then lay back down. His face did that thing where it tries to reorganize itself into a better face. We didn't go to the clerk, he said, panicked. We're not legally, his voice died. I pressed my palm to his sternum. It's content, I said. We'll make it dead. He held my wrist. I'm so sorry, he said, and there are few sentences that make me want to forgive immediately more than those 3 in that order and that tone. But I put a hand up because forgiveness is calcium and we were temporarily osteoporotic. Later, I said. We have to handle my brother. We found the video online in under 5 minutes. Grant had posted a cut with music, captions, and an ending shot of the chapel neon in his voiceover. Guys, I got my brother-in-law to marry me. Should we tell my sister? The comments were a coliseum. Strangers volunteered to break my knees. Strangers applauded me for being chill. Strangers wrote, oh, bigamy gotta catch 'em all, and I wrote in my head all the sentences I would tattoo on the internet if it had skin. Theo sat on the bed watching his own face like a man at the aquarium spotting a creature he thought extinct. This is bad, he said. This is public, I said, which is worse. We went to the chapel with our mouths set to the angle that gets service. The lavender-suited woman was there with a muffin. We need you to delete whatever you think you have, I said. We need you to give me the paper that says it's not real. And I need you to remember the words right to publicity and consent. She blinked like a doll that was trying to become a person. People post, she said. We don't control. We can print non-binding certificates for the memory book. She printed 2 certificates and handed them to me like a nurse handing a new mother her baby. I tore them in half on the counter. It felt good and juvenile and restored nothing. We tried the tack of compassion. Grant, Theo said over brunch, pale but alive, I need you to understand. I feel sick. This, even if it's not legal, it feels like a stain. It's a joke, Grant said, annoyed at our refusal to enjoy. It's also a humiliation, I said. Of me, I added, because my body was buzzing with that old familiar chemical, being a girl in a room where the joke is always about control. Your wife is trending, he said. You're welcome. My wife wants her life back, Theo said, and I remembered why I married him, and then Grant said, you can't unring a bell, and I wondered for a moment if I could change families the way you change lanes. Signal, breathe, go. We flew home. The airport had TVs that showed the fight Theo had wanted to see. Instead, we watched a man with a microphone ask a boxer if the punches hurt. A little, the boxer said. But I have to act like they don't. Theo squeezed my hand like a blood pressure cuff. I squeezed back. On the plane, we wrote a list titled Undo. It included, ask Grant to delete all, ask YouTube to remove for privacy violation, call a lawyer for an annulment that isn't necessary but might look like paperwork, talk to HR about addressing any fallout if a patient finds it. Theo works with people who Google. I added therapy for rage that tastes like pennies. The lawyer was a woman named Joan with steel hair and a voice that would make a judge write Nita. Is it legal? I asked. No, she said. He's already married. The ceremony is performative. No license, no filing, no marriage. Vegas is efficient. It isn't magic. However, she said, the internet treats performance as evidence. That can affect things. Like my sanity, I said. Like his job, Theo said. She nodded and suggested words like false light and intentional infliction, but recommended we start with the ask. She also asked if Grant's brand had sponsors. Yes, I said. Several soda companies who hate bad press but love prank boys. She smiled with her teeth. Leverage, she said. Send them a letter. Ask them if they endorse non-consensual marriage content that humiliates women and potentially confuses children about what weddings are. Theo almost clapped. I almost hugged her file cabinet. We did it. We wrote to YouTube, to TikTok, to Instagram, to places I didn't know human attention pooled. I attached screenshots of our actual marriage license like a woman applying to participate in her own life. Allegra, my lighting designer friend who learned law as a hobby to survive theater, helped me write to the brands. We used phrases like core values that taste like chalk but sometimes move mountains. Theo filmed a quiet video where he said plainly, I did something dumb. I wouldn't do it again. I love my wife. Don't do bits that make people doubt the people they are supposed to be able to trust. He posted it on the account he uses mostly for dog videos and physical therapy tips. It got a fraction of the views, but the comments were clean water. Grant called me dramatic. He posted a follow-up, guys, my sis is mad, so be nice, which increased the horde. He refused to delete. He said words like free speech as if he'd ever defended anything that costs more than ad revenue. One sponsor wrote back, we're pausing our partnership pending review. I printed it out and put it on my fridge like a child's drawing. Another sponsor unfollowed him, which in their world is a shot across a bow. He texted me a string of skull emojis. You're ruining my livelihood, he wrote. You filmed my marriage like a sideshow, I wrote. You'll be fine. I want to sleep. The thing about being a stage manager is you sit in the dark and you call light. You learn pacing. You understand that an audience will forgive a lot if the scene that follows honors them. I stopped reading the comments and tended my next cue. I made soup. I went to work. My actors were gentle with me in the way creative people can be when they recognize blood behind someone's eyes. Theo apologized every night for a week as if apologies were Advil and we needed to dose. I told him to stop saying sorry and start planning. He bought flowers for no reason, learned to cook one good pasta exactly right, researched digital privacy like a man writing a thesis, told my mother what had occurred in a voice so calm she cried because sometimes calm is scarier than rage. My mother called Grant and said, I didn't raise you to film people into madness, and he said, you raised me to be interesting, which is an indictment she did not deserve, and she hung up and then called me back and said, your brother's brilliance is a cheap room with someone else's art on the wall, and I loved her for the sentence and for the scale of it and for the way she made me tea without leaving her house. YouTube finally took down the video for violating a private individual's image rights. TikTok left it up for one more week with a banner that might as well have read "Shrug." Instagram ain't loyal. The views slowed. The echoes decreased. A new scandal took the room. The internet is a hungry baby, we threw it someone else's spoon. Grant denied applause, tried spite. He refused to sign an apology. He refused to say the word consent. He kept calling Theo husband in captions because his sense of humor is a bludgeon. At Thanksgiving he arrived in a tuxedo t-shirt. My mother made him change. "Dress like love," she said. He rolled his eyes and put on a sweater with a moose. During pie, my father asked him carefully if he had talked to a therapist about the hole inside him that he keeps shoving fireworks into. "My therapist is my audience," he said, which is a confession and an acquittal and not a recipe for a life. Here's the quiet part that doesn't make a good clip. I stopped speaking to my brother for 3 months. I, the woman who answers every text, every call, every crisis, as if I can stage manage a person into a better scene, went offline where he was concerned. I told my parents I was not a weapon and I was not a referee and I was not coming to any event where surprise content might happen. I placed a chair at the door of my own house and called it boundary. It was lonely. It was also oxygen. During those months, Theo and I had our real crisis, not because of him but because shock reveals cracks. We interrogated the parts of us that said yes to other people out of habit. He told me he wanted to be the kind of man who clinks with sparkling water and remembers things in his cells. He told me he felt stupid and ashamed and like a man who would always be one drink away from being used. I told him he was not, we are not, and also that I needed him to be grandiose in his protecting of us, not in his apologizing. He started ending calls with his family by saying, "I've got to go make dinner for my wife," even when we ordered pizza, because sometimes a sentence can be a rehab. A teacher of mine used to say, "Repair is a choreography you practice when no one is clapping." We practiced. Theo deleted 3 old party friends from his phone. I blocked a set of cousins whose commentary on the situation amounted to "lighten up." We took a trip to a lake where nothing was funny and everything was good. We renewed our vows in a kitchen with 2 friends and the dog looking like he was about to object. My friend Marie, who really did introduce us, said, "Repeat after me," and we did, and afterward she slapped Theo on the arm gentle and quick. "This one's for Vegas," and we all laughed until we cried because grief and gratitude looked the same in the throat. When Grant finally texted, it was not a masterpiece. "You still mad?" he wrote. I did not perform for him. "Yes," I wrote. And I want my sister," he wrote, which is the closest he has yet come to humility. "What does that mean to you?" I typed. He replied, "It means showing you drafts. Of stunts. Of everything." "I'm not your editor," I wrote. He sent a thumbs up because men discover emoji when they are in trouble. He showed up at my theater with an orchid wrapped in foil like we were in a hospital. He watched a run-through and did not film. After, in the lobby, he said, "I saw the cue sheet. That's insane," with something like awe, and I said, "It's love," and he looked at me with a face I remember from when we were 8, and he broke my crayon and then cried because he broke it more than because I was mad. "I won't post anything with you or Theo without permission," he said. "And I'll stop calling him my husband." It was just funny. "To whom?" I asked. He sighed. "To the part of me that likes to set things on fire and watch them look beautiful," he said. "Try water," I said. "It's beautiful too." He rolled his eyes and said, "Oh," because he doesn't know how else to end tenderness. I don't believe in neat endings. I believe in long ones. Grant still makes videos. Some of them are decent. He paid rent for a woman whose landlord was a shadow and did not film her face. He frames the camera better now that he knows I will call his sponsor if he doesn't. Theo keeps a single whiskey in the house for guests and hasn't wanted it once. He tells his patients the body is patient and so should we be. I call cues in the dark and then go home and let the light lag for a second before turning it on like Grace. On the anniversary of the Vegas debacle, we went to a diner that looks like it could survive an apocalypse. We ordered pancakes that required faith. Theo said, "I've been thinking about vows," which made me smile. He took a folded piece of paper from his pocket and read, "I won't make jokes out of your life. Not even small ones. Not even when the world gives me a stage and a laugh track. I will be funny with you, not about you. I will save all my content for our couch." The waitress, who is a person who has seen hunger organized into shapes, said amen, placing syrup like a sacrament, and I married him again in my head again and again, because marrying is for every day that is not a party. Sometimes at work someone tells a joke that lands wrong, and because I am the one in the headset responsible for the shape of the night, I say, "We don't do that bit here," and we don't. I keep a photo from our actual wedding in my prompt book, not the kiss, just our hands signing the license, my ridiculous nail polish, his terrible pen grip, my mother's necklace glinting like a small herald. It's proof of what matters and what holds. The phone buzzes during tech and I ignore it because unless the theater is on fire, the scene is the scene. After, in the alley, under a light that makes everyone look like a noir version of themselves, I check messages. Grant sends a picture of a sandwich he made with the caption, "Look. Bread." I send back proud, because this is how we practice being people without a camera. If you came to my show and stayed to watch a strike take everything apart and put it back into boxes, clean, labeled, ready, you'd see that endings are just new places to put your careful. You'd see Theo carrying flats like they are feathers and me wrapping cables into circles that remember themselves. You'd see my phone face down because I am busy not being content. You'd walk home under whatever your town calls stars and maybe you'd text someone you love, "No bits tonight," and they would write back, "No bits ever," and you would sleep, and in the morning the internet would have moved on, but your kitchen would still be the place where vows are kept, and that is the relief and the miracle and the thing I'm trying to write down before the neon lies to me again.